Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Starfall Legacy prototype. I'm not 100% positive if this is the exact prototype that the Legacy was built after, because I know that shortly after I got this, there was a small run that Nick did almost exactly like this, where there was several handmade. I think there was like 4 done. So this was before that, just a little bit. It has been sitting in my queue for a while because we went to do a crystal upgrade chamber, so we'll show that down below. But yeah, this is the take on the Legacy, and if I take myself over here, you can sort of see the how much they are similar. So the pommels, the grips, the 2 bands, the gold ears, and all that stuff. But this one was mostly machined in-house and a few found parts. So let's do this. Let's hop down to the table. Let's talk about what went on with the install and show off the chassis, which is kind of the main point here. And then we'll come back out. I'll put a blade in it for a little bit, show off some things, but this is a return client, and as with most of my Starfall videos, they're almost all the same in terms of operations. There's a few exceptions on this one, but we'll go over that here in a second. So let's do that. Let's hop down it. So here we have it. This is the prototype version of the Starfall Legacy hilt. So, you know, the knurled grip, the larger pommel, so we're able to fit a 28mm speaker. The pommel actually is mostly resonance space here. There is a brass insert, and my chassis stops somewhere up here. And so that makes this a very great sounding hilt. It does come with a blade plug. I believe these blade plugs are from the Infinity line. So this is a 1-inch diameter opening. We have a Shtok V4 NPXL. On the main toggle switch, this is a kind of DIY version of a clicky switch. Putting this up to my lapel mic if you can hear it. It's sort of built like the Kessa ones, but this uses a spare bezel that I had, a different insert that holds the actual switch, micro switch in there. And then I've used an antique brass thumb screw from like your ceiling fan, and then on the back side of it I've got like a little nut so that it stays in there, but it basically works as that. And then of course Nick had already prepped for a dome tactile for the aux right there. So both of these are clicky. The main is just a little bit more silent than this, and then yeah, everything unscrews here. So I've already unscrewed it right now to show off the chassis. So again, like I mentioned just above, the reason this took a little bit of time is we had to wait for the manufacture and design of this brass chassis that I did. So we can see some appointments that I've borrowed from other designers and from my most recent Adept install. I did a different version of some micro knurling on these brass chamber rods, and that's inspired by Tim at Tierfon Orbital. But the really cool thing is up top, we've got our focusing crystal, which is a cubic zirconia, and there is a single micro PCB up in there. That one comes from the Saber Armory, so KR Sabers. It's a 2020 single pixel, and then underneath the actual quartz is just your regular 50/50 PCB. And so both of these light up super bright, and it's really cool. And so then we have my, resin greeblie chassis with a baffled greeblie with a 2020 strip under it. We've got our Proffie V3.9 operating OS 8.10, our kill switch. And then on this side, another 2020 strip. This is an 18 pixel count subbladed into 6 pixels each, so 3 subblades there. We've got our 28mm KR bass speaker, and then the spot for our 18650. And if we just tap that out, we can get to it. And we can see the Starfall logo. I normally don't highlight them like this because it takes a lot of extra paint work, but since I was waiting on the chamber, I went ahead and did that. But then we have our, keystone contacts, positive terminal clearly indicated, my wrap on an 18650 battery. So we just put that in there, and then we can rotate that if we want to either show nothing or show whichever way you plan to look at it. So let's hit the kill switch. If I can actually get my finger there. And on this one, I didn't differentiate the animation, but I did differentiate the colors. But like I like to do, a lot of these are varied up on the color scheme so that it's not just all one color to represent whoever it is. So if we switch the aux, you can see some of the newer fonts. Here I did a back and forth blinky with yellow and green in there. And we've got some, here, let me turn this off so we're not.
Artelis. Starfall.
So here's one where you can actually see the differentiation. So up top, it's a little bit purple, and then the crystal itself is red, and those animate at different time sequences. And then of course, we've got this animation. And then they all respond to blaster blocks or, you know, whatever. So, clashes. And then you can see the emitter doing what it does. This, again, this is just going to mimic the main blade, so you won't have any independent animations there. Yeah, really cool though. So let's just show off a couple more. See, it's purple and magenta. Purple for the main crystal. This is the mace style font. But then we have like orange over here, red and blue there. A little bit different of an ignition. So let's do this. Let's put a blade in it. But yeah, we'll just put this on, and we want to be careful not to be too aggressive. So like I mentioned, this takes a 1-inch diameter NeoPixel blade. I am going to use my regular BTF strip basically enabled because I did try to use my quantum strip, which is a 7/8 with an adapter, but there's just not enough bite on the actual adapter part, so the blade is loose. So I found that out in testing, but no big deal. If you have the right diameter, you can just use your regular blade. Still plenty bright. So as with this person's previous install, we just have twist on and twist off. I didn't include thrust on, but that does get us into battle mode. And there's a threshold within battle mode for clashes that engage lockups. So you can still get glancing blows. So if we just hit the button, then we're in normal mode, which means if you want to engage a lockup, hold either switch as you clash the saber. And for as long as you're holding it, it'll remain locked up, and that's true for tip effects as well. So, but I have to be holding it in regular mode. But if I use the gesture on, now we're in battle mode. So if we just lightly tap it, we'll get the glancing blows like that. But if we really smack on it, we'll engage that lockup until we pull away. So as with this person's previous install, as with all Starfall installs, it comes with the full font package. I have included the newer fonts as they were given to me from Brian over at Civilized Weaponry Services. So yeah, so those will be at the end of this particular one. But it's 12 or 13 fonts. And if I could, I put a voice pack into the font folder so that each character, if there was one that I knew about and was put together by Brian Connor, I put those in there. So for instance, this is a Mace inspired font. So he will guide us through edit mode if that's what we want. But if we're just checking the battery or changing the volume, we can do that.
Battery level, 86%.
So we got Mace window.
Enter volume menu. Maximum volume. Exiting volume menu.
And then if we go back,
Celestial. Starfall.
you know, Starfall will be like the Vader font. So then
Battery level, 86%.
So we've got all that. But yeah, everything else about the typical install is true. It's running OS 8.10 with the FET263 prop file. And so that covers a range of functions that are beyond the scope of this video. So I will have a printout that I include with the Saber. You can always go to fet263.com and look up their prop file instructions for 2-button Sabers, and you'll get even more information. Again, this is a return client, so this operation will act just like their other one. The only difference being there's a few new fonts now. And as with a lot of things, like with the Proffie boards that I buy, there are more fonts on the SD card that came when I bought the Proffies. So I think they're probably intended for like a Cal Kestis style hilt. And so it comes with a lot of characters, including some of the Jedi Survivor fonts. And those are on the SD card, but they're not programmed into the config. And so if you want to access those, you can either learn how to program your own config. My config is provided on the SD card along with a preset template at the very end, because there are 7 blades we're accounting for. We're accounting for the main blade, crystal top and bottom, each of the 3 subblades on the vented greeblie, and then the main baffled greeblie. So that's a total of 7 blade styles to keep track of every time you have to create a new preset, which is why I like to have a template file there. So it's got a little header, little comments that explain exactly which blade, so you always remember to paste 7 different styles, even if they're all the same styles. But if you're not one that likes to reprogram, or if that's too much for you, then edit mode is pretty easy to do on the fly. And again, I'm not going to cover it all here, but you can hold both buttons. The Saber will light up into edit mode. You can get into edit settings, but the main thing I generally suggest is like to copy a preset. So if there's a style that you like, say like this one that we're on right now, Starfall, which has options built into it for the ignition and the retraction, and then a couple of different like other things that are in there. And then you just duplicate that preset, and all you really need to do is go in and change whichever colors of each of the lights that you want to change the colors of. And then the main thing is to tell it to look at a different font folder. And then that's when it will start reading the SD card for all the different fonts. So again, I don't normally cover that here. I'm giving you a quick primer because I have been in conversation with this client, and that was something that came up. So edit mode will be described on the printout. It will also have the hierarchy of menu systems that you need to get into. But the way I organize the preset template is in a logical fashion. So the very first blade that you go to edit, if you want to edit the color or any of the style options, is the main blade. And then it just goes down the hilt. So crystal top, crystal bottom, greeblie, 1, and then vent high, mid, low, and it's all very, very easy to get to. Obviously, with the chassis being in here, if the main thing you care about is what you see when the Saber's all buttoned up, then you really only have to change one and you can leave all the accents. But that's part of the fun. And then the other thing to note is that there is a 5-minute time off. So I've probably been talking for 2.5, 3 minutes here. If I open this up, some of the lights may be off. So you'll have to hit the power button to wake it back up. That being said, show off a couple more things here. Make sure I'm not going to step on my dog. So again, I just hit the button to ignite it. There are a couple fonts with preons, Ruin, and then most of the brand new ones.
Heroes.
And the only way to get that preon is to hit the power button in regular mode. So that little brief second is our preon. If I do a twist on, I'm not going to get that. I'm just going to get that ignition. So there you go.
Reconcile.
But that's pretty much it. When we're ready, we can disengage the blade. Set that down right here. Can put our blade plug back in. One thing to note, you do have the entire depth of this blade plug. I think that's like 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches. So the only thing to note is that this is your retention, so you don't need any tools, but it is pretty low. You'll be able to see some marring on the side. So if, like you just noticed when I had a hiccup before, I hadn't actually engaged all the pins before I tightened it up, and that was because I probably hit it because it was still sticking out. So just be mindful of that. But otherwise, it's a great swinger if you want to. I wouldn't do anything stunt-wise. You could do some mild dueling, but the fact that you have a really expensive crystal chamber means this is probably gonna live on a shelf somewhere. So when you're ready, we can hit the kill switch and we'll watch everything turn off. And you're good to go. You can either take your battery out to charge it. And I will say also, over time, since this is resin printed, if you do any reprogramming and you need to lift the board up because you don't have a 90-degree cable, which I do recommend getting, then that may wear out. So you may need some adhesive. But right now, it's a good press fit. And yeah, so everything goes on pretty tight. No tools necessary. And yeah, and everything's ready to go. So that is the Legacy Prototype Saber. To my client, thanks for your patience on this one. I hope you enjoy this when you get it. And to everyone else out there watching, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.